Okay, imagine this for a second. Someone takes your voice, maybe your face too, and creates this thing online, a video, maybe audio that goes viral. And it's you apparently saying something truly awful or completely misleading, something you never actually said. How would that even feel? And, in that moment, who actually owns your digital self? That's what we're diving into today. This explosive rise of AI-generated deepfakes and voice clones. It's fascinating tech for sure, but also, well, pretty unsettling. We need to unpack what these digital doppelgangers really are, how they're made, and what it means for, well, all of us online.
And that's exactly the mission here. We're going to explore the whole landscape. We'll look at some, frankly, alarming incidents, but also some really groundbreaking legal fights happening right now. We'll see how different places, different countries are trying to get a handle on protecting, a person's likeness, their voice, the truth itself, which brings up that huge question. How do we even navigate a world where what you see, what you hear, might be completely convincingly fake?
That's a heavy question to start with. And to really get it, I think we first need to nail down the basics. What exactly are we talking about with deepfakes and voice cloning?
Right. So a deepfake basically is AI-generated media.
Yeah.
Could be video, could be audio. And it's designed to mimic someone real, their face, their voice, even how they move.
How do they make it so convincing?
Well, it uses machine learning. You feed the AI lots of existing footage or audio of the person, and the models learn all the tiny details, facial tics, speech patterns, emotional expressions, enough training, and it gets really, really hard to tell the fake from the real thing.
Okay, and voice cloning, is that similar?
Very similar principle, but focused just on the audio. You train an AI on recordings of someone's voice. It learns their specific tone, their cadence, how they pronounce things. The end result, it can generate new speech that sounds, pretty much indistinguishable from the original person. But here's the thing, the paradox. This technology has this dual nature. Voice cloning, for instance, it could be used for amazing things like giving speech back to someone who lost their voice.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's also being weaponized. We're seeing it used in scams, financial fraud, and of course, big misinformation campaigns. The same tool,
Wow.
huge potential for good, huge potential for harm.
A real double-edged sword then. So you mentioned misuse. Can you give us some specific examples, things that have actually happened that bring this home?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
There was that case in Maryland, a high school principal. Some students apparently used AI to create audio of him saying racist things.
No way.
Yes, and this fake audio it just blew up on social media, led to a massive investigation, disciplinary actions, potential legal trouble, too.
Yeah.
Really damaging stuff.
That's chilling, just kids messing around, potentially, but with huge consequences.
Exactly. And then you have things like AI-powered robocalls. We've seen voice clones impersonating political figures right before elections, trying to mislead voters.
Right, I remember hearing about that, spreading confusion.
Totally. And that got regulators really concerned at a national level. These aren't just like one-off pranks. They show how easily identity can be weaponized using these tools. It hits individuals hard, obviously, but it also chips away at public trust in institutions, even in elections. It's immediate, tangible impact.
So if it's that easy to fake someone, what about consent? Does anyone check if you're allowed to clone someone's voice or face?
Well, that's a huge issue. Consumer Reports actually did an investigation, I think it was 2024. They looked at a bunch of these AI voice tools available to, regular consumers.
And what did they find?
Mostly that these tools don't have good ways to check for consent. A lot of apps let basically anyone upload some audio, maybe scraped from online, and just make a voice clone. No real checks, no authentication.
So wide open for abuse then?
Pretty much. Which is why you're starting to hear this term, consent-first AI. The idea is simple, really. Build the system so that getting documented, verifiable permission is step one, before any likeness or voice gets generated or shared.
Okay, consent first. Makes sense. But what if that doesn't happen? If someone's likeness is stolen and used in some fake, harmful way, what legal options do they have right now? I've heard of something called the false light tort.
Right, the false light tort. It's a type of privacy claim in law. It applies when someone is portrayed publicly in a way that's misleading, inaccurate, and would be, highly offensive to a reasonable person.
How's that different from, say, defamation?
Good question. Defamation is more about damaging someone's reputation with false statements. False light focuses more on the misrepresentation itself, the emotional distress it causes, even if it doesn't technically ruin their reputation. So a deepfake putting words in your mouth might fit.
Might. So it's not a perfect fit.
Well, here's the problem. A big legal study, I think it was in the Arizona Law Review, looked into this. And while some of these AI impersonation cases could potentially fall under existing torts like false light or maybe intentional infliction of emotional distress,
Mm-hmm.
the conclusion was pretty clear. There's no single modern law in the U.S. that really covers this specific AI impersonation threat properly. Our existing laws, like false light, they just weren't designed for this kind of AI-driven fabrication, the scale of it, the speed.
So the law is lagging behind the tech, like trying to regulate spaceships with traffic laws for horses.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, the frameworks we have are playing catch-up, and honestly, they're struggling to keep pace.
Okay, so the current laws are patchy, but surely people are trying to fix this. Are countries or states starting to create new rules specifically for this?
Yes, definitely. We're seeing some really interesting legislative moves globally. Take Denmark, for example.
Denmark, what are they doing?
They proposed a pretty groundbreaking law. The idea is to essentially give citizens copyright over their own digital likeness, their face, their voice.
Copyright, like for a song or a photo.
Exactly.
Mm.
Which would make it illegal to create or share deepfakes of someone without their explicit permission. It's framing your digital identity as a form of intellectual property you own and control.
Huh, that's a novel approach. But wait, what about things like satire or news reporting? Does that mean you couldn't make a political cartoon using AI?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And they're trying to address it. The Danish proposal specifically tries to carve out exceptions for things like satire and public commentary. So the goal isn't a total ban, but to stop the malicious stuff, the commercial exploitation without consent, while still allowing for, legitimate parody or artistic use. It's a tricky balance to strike.
Definitely sounds tricky. What about here in the US? Are we seeing similar moves?
We are, yeah. It's happening more at the state level currently, but also some federal action. New Jersey, for instance, went pretty hard. They brought in strict penalties, civil and criminal, for making and spreading harmful deepfakes. We're talking potential jail time.
Wow, okay. Serious consequences.
And federally, there's the Take It Down Act. That was signed in 2025. It gives schools and families a way to demand that platforms quickly remove non-consensual AI-generated stuff, especially explicit or inappropriate material involving kids. Puts the onus on the platforms to act fast.
So, measures to protect vulnerable groups and add real teeth to the laws, it does feel like there's a global momentum building around this idea of digital personality rights.
That's a great way to put it. A global push for digital personality rights. Look at India. The courts there are actively recognizing these rights. There have been cases, like a famous Bollywood singer whose voice got cloned for commercial use without permission. He sued and won, blocking the use of the AI voice.
So, setting a precedent.
Exactly. It establishes that your voice, your digital persona, is part of your intellectual and kind of emotional property. WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, has actually highlighted cases like this.
Mm.
They see it as a potential international model.
In Europe, they usually have strong data privacy rules.
We do. And the EU's AI Act, the draft from 2025, tackles this too. It proposes things like mandatory watermarking for synthetic content, so you'd know if something was AI generated. Plus, clear labeling requirements for AI audio and video, and making platforms responsible for disclosing when AI is used. It's all about transparency, really.
Transparency, consent, consequences. It feels like we're trying to build guardrails as the car is speeding down the highway.
That's not far off.
Okay, so we've talked tech, misuse, law, but this feels bigger somehow. What does all this fakery, this simulation mean for how we even understand reality? It's not just mimicking people. It feels like it's messing with our sense of what's true.
It absolutely is. And, it connects to some really old philosophical ideas. Think about Plato, his allegory of the cave.
Sure, the prisoner is watching shadows on the wall, thinking that's reality.
Exactly. Plato suggested we might mistake shadows for truth if we don't see the real thing. Deepfakes, in a way, are the digital shadows of our time. People might see these simulations, believe them, and mistake them for genuine human interaction or events. And then there's Jean Baudrillard, a more modern thinker. He talked about simulacra.
Yeah, simulacra, simulations becoming reality.
Kind of. His idea was that in our media-saturated culture, simulations and copies can actually become more real, more influential than the original reality they represent. Think about a viral deepfake video. The artificial performance might get way more views, more belief, more impact than whatever the actual person said or did. The simulation replaces the real.
That's deeply unsettling. And it has echoes, doesn't it? I read something about how AI is being used to create racist caricatures, and how that mirrors things like old minstrel shows.
Yes, That's a really important and disturbing point. Using this sophisticated AI to generate racist portrayals, it's essentially recycling those old dehumanizing tropes from things like minstrelsy. Back then, actors used blackface to mock and belittle African Americans. Now AI can do it digitally, maybe hiding behind the novelty of the tech. It shows how these powerful tools can unfortunately resurrect and amplify very old prejudices in new forms.
So the technology might be new, but the potential for harm, for prejudice, is tapping into something much older, much more human.
Precisely. Technology is always a tool. Its impact depends entirely on how we use it, on the intentions, the biases, conscious or unconscious, of the people creating and deploying it. Seeing these old prejudices mirrored in new tech forces us to confront some fundamental things about ourselves, doesn't it? About identity, trust, authenticity. It's not just a tech problem, it's a deeply human one.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at what deepfakes and voice clones are, the technology, the very real harms we're already seeing,
Mhm.
the legal battles heating up around the world, and even these, well, profound philosophical questions about reality itself. It seems crystal clear that the tech is racing ahead, but the critical conversations about consent, about how we protect people, about digital dignity, they're really just getting started.
Absolutely. And the big challenge right in front of us is finding that balance. How do we encourage innovation, which can have benefits, while fiercely protecting individual identity and the very notion of truth? We've even seen just how damaging these digital impersonations can be. And it underscores how vital strong laws and just general public awareness are going to be moving forward.
So, as you, our listener, go about your digital life, maybe scrolling through your feed later today, here's something to think about. In this age where your face, your voice, your digital self can be copied and twisted so easily, so convincingly, what does it even mean to own your identity anymore? And how does knowing that change the way you trust anything you see or hear online? Something to definitely mull over.